The clock ticked mercilessly inside the marble-floored lobby of Hawthorne Enterprises, a place that gleamed with power, wealth, and silence, the kind of silence that swallowed small people whole. Lucas Ward wasn't supposed to be here. Not this close to the world that had forgotten him. Not this close to the woman who once promised forever. But fate, cruel and clever, had its own sense of humor. He stood in his gray janitor uniform, holding a mop like it was his last shield when the CEO herself, Eleanor Hawthorne, walked toward him in a whirlwind of heels, perfume, and panic. Her face, normally carved with poise, looked shaken, desperate. And then she said something that froze the air around them. "Lucas, pretend you love me, for 7 minutes. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the beauty of the human heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Journal." Every story here reminds us that compassion still matters. 7 minutes, it sounded absurd, like the setup for a cruel joke. But Lucas, a man who had faced everything from late rent to his son's medical bills, didn't laugh. Not even a twitch. He just looked at her. This woman who had once been his college sweetheart before the tides of class and ambition had ripped them apart. He saw the tremble in her eyes, the kind she tried to hide behind corporate armor. And even though his heart screamed with old pain, he nodded silently. The next moment unfolded like a movie no one could have scripted. Eleanor reached out, slipping her hand through his arm, her body trembling against his. The massive glass doors swung open, and a dozen investors from Japan stepped inside. Her voice, which had just been trembling, now floated confidently through the air, introducing Lucas as her fiancé, the man she chose for love, not status. Cameras flashed. Smiles were exchanged. Lucas felt his pulse racing as her hand squeezed his. It wasn't part of a script anymore. It felt real. For those 7 minutes, the janitor and the CEO became something they could never be again. But behind the performance, Lucas's mind was spinning. He hadn't seen Eleanor in 8 years. The last time was the night she left him, leaving behind only a letter and a promise to become someone worthy. He became someone else entirely. A widowed father, scrubbing floors to feed his little boy Mason, and now here she was, using his broken heart as her shield. He didn't understand why until the meeting ended and the guests disappeared. That's when she finally let go of his arm and collapsed into the nearest chair, her confidence unraveling like silk. They were going to pull out of the merger, she whispered, her voice cracking. They wanted proof that I wasn't some cold executive who couldn't love. The board thinks emotions make me human again. She laughed bitterly, wiping tears before they could fall. I didn't have anyone else to ask. Lucas stood there in silence, his heart aching with both pity and confusion. He wanted to hate her. He wanted to walk away, but he couldn't, not when he saw the weight she carried. "You didn't have to pretend," he said quietly. "You could have just asked for help." That night, Lucas went home to their small 2-room apartment, where Mason waited, drawing superheroes on scrap paper. The boy looked up and smiled wide, his face the one thing that never changed even when the world did. "You smell fancy today, Dad," he giggled. Like perfume. Lucas ruffled his hair and chuckled softly, but his mind was miles away, on the woman who used to be his dream, and now looked like she was falling apart under the gold walls of success. The next morning, Lucas expected things to go back to normal, but life had other plans. When he walked into work, Eleanor was waiting for him near the service elevator, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You saved me yesterday," she said simply, "and I owe you an explanation." He didn't want one, he wanted peace. But her tone left no room for refusal. She followed him down to the basement janitor's lounge, a small, dim place where the hum of pipes replaced luxury. There, in that quiet room, she told him the truth. The board was threatening to remove her as CEO unless she proved she could connect with people again. Her late father's will had included a cruel condition. The company could only remain under her name if she married, for love. Within the year, every man she dated had wanted her money, her influence, never her heart. And now, with time running out, she was desperate to prove she wasn't alone. "Lucas," she said, her voice trembling, "I didn't just choose you for convenience. I chose you because you're the only one who ever loved me without expecting anything back." The words hit him like thunder. For a moment, the sound of the world faded, replaced only by the echo of old memories. Their late night walks in the rain, the laughter in cheap diners, the promises they made before life split them apart. But then he looked at his worn hands, the cracks of hard labor, and reality came crashing back. "That was another lifetime, Eleanor," he said softly. "We don't belong in the same world anymore." The days turned into weeks, but fate kept pulling them together. The board invited Lucas to more events, charity galas, media dinners, and Eleanor, too proud to explain the lie, kept playing her part. At first he resisted. But then, when she offered to sponsor Mason's school tuition as thanks, he hesitated. It wasn't pity, it was survival. For Mason, he could bear anything, even pretending to love a woman who had once shattered him. Yet something unexpected began to happen. Beneath the charade, the walls between them started to crack. Lucas saw the loneliness behind Eleanor's perfect image. The exhaustion, the sleepless nights, the quiet tears she shed when no one was watching. And Eleanor saw the strength she'd once taken for granted. The patience in Lucas's eyes, the warmth in the way he spoke to her staff, the quiet dignity in every act of kindness he showed. One afternoon, while rehearsing their public appearance in the rooftop garden, a sudden gust of wind sent papers flying everywhere. Eleanor ran to catch them, laughing breathlessly, her hair undone and face glowing in the sunlight. Lucas froze. For the first time in years, she looked real, not the CEO, not the heiress, just Eleanor, the girl he once loved. "Do you ever miss who we were?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "Every day," he admitted, his voice raw. "But I can't live in memories." And yet in the days that followed, memories became reality. Eleanor started showing up in small ways, packing extra lunch for Mason, leaving coffee near his mop bucket, sharing late-night conversations about life, loss, and love. Lucas realized she was trying, not to fix the past, but to rebuild something new from its ashes. The turning point came one afternoon when Mason fell sick at school. Lucas rushed to the hospital, terrified, holding his son's tiny hand while machines beeped around him. He didn't notice Eleanor until she appeared quietly beside him, holding a blanket. She stayed the whole night, refusing to leave. When Mason finally woke up and smiled weakly, he whispered, "Dad, is she your friend?" Lucas hesitated, but Eleanor squeezed his hand and said softly, "I'm family." Something shifted that night, not out of obligation or pity, but out of love rediscovered in its purest form. A few days later, Eleanor called a press conference. Cameras lined the hall. The board members, investors, and media crowded in anticipation. Everyone expected her to make another business announcement, maybe a new merger, a new deal. But when she stepped up to the podium, she didn't read from her notes. Her eyes searched for Lucas in the crowd, and found him, standing quietly at the back, still in his janitor uniform. "Sometimes," she began, her voice trembling, "success makes us forget the people who truly matter. It makes us believe love is something we can buy, when in truth, it's something we earn." The man standing back there, he taught me what real love looks like: humility, kindness, forgiveness. "He didn't save my company. He saved me." The crowd murmured. Cameras clicked. Lucas stood frozen, tears stinging his eyes. Eleanor stepped down from the stage, walked straight toward him and whispered, "No more pretending." Then she kissed him, not as part of a show, but as a promise. That moment shattered every invisible wall that separated their worlds. The investors stood in stunned silence. The board didn't fire her. Instead, they applauded, because for once, they saw the leader they'd been waiting for. Not the flawless CEO, but the woman with courage to love again. In the weeks that followed, life didn't turn into a fairy tale, but something better, something real. Eleanor offered Lucas a better position, but he refused to climb the ladder on pity. Instead, she offered partnership, not in business, but in life. Mason got his scholarship, and Eleanor became part of their small world. Dinner at home, laughter over burnt pancakes, long drives by the river. Sometimes, late in the afternoon when sunlight poured through their kitchen window, Lucas would catch Eleanor looking at him with the same eyes she once had in college, full of wonder and gratitude. And he'd realize that maybe love doesn't die, it just waits for the right time to bloom again. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, comment, and subscribe to Kindness Journal. Your support helps us bring more real, emotional stories of hope and second chances to life. And before you go, comment below. Do you believe love deserves a second chance, no matter how long it takes? Because sometimes all it takes is 7 minutes to remember forever.